When you really boil it down to its most basic ingredients, film is an entirely sensory experience, one that specifically targets your eyes and ears to tell emotionally engaging stories and evoke all manner of feelings. And horror, of course, does this in the most extreme ways possible. Not merely content in plastering the screen with gallons of gore and more bare flesh than Amity Island in the summertime, many horror filmmakers go out of their way to make the audiovisual components of their films feel truly sinister. Be it through the use of eye-watering colours, otherworldly sound effects, or brash, unconventional editing styles, there are many ways that filmmakers can scare you silly without always jumping to senseless violence and perverse titillation. These movies are prime examples of how a sensory overload can be just as effective as a traditional scare. So if you're looking for something a little different in your horror movies, then you're in the right place. I am the bad taste of Ash from WhatCulture Horror, and these are 10 horror movies that wage war on your senses. 10. House of a Thousand Corpses. At the turn of the century, horror rock icon Rob Zombie made his feature debut with the deliriously morbid and hugely entertaining House of a Thousand Corpses. Zombie has directed many of his own music videos over the years, and the skills he learned for his signature brand of industrial boogie metal are on full display in this film's energetic presentation. In essence, the film is a retelling of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but if everyone involved was on copious amounts of acid. It's every bit as raw as Tobe Hooper's seminal classic, but it's bathed in so much neon lighting that could even put Nicholas Winding Refn to shame. Stylistically, it's like a UV paint party inside a fairground funhouse, one that just happens to be full of murderous hillbillies. Even when compared to his other, more visually stunning film, The Lords of Salem, Corpses comes out on top for being so outrageously stylish and thoroughly mean-spirited. 9. Don't Look Now. Don't Look Now is a film that's not reliant on eye-popping colours or hyper-aggressive music to unsettle. Instead, it employs skillful framing and misdirection, which often makes you second-guess everything you see. Crucial information is often revealed in the most innocuous of places, allowing it to truly shine on subsequent viewings. The muted colour palette and somewhat unorthodox soundtrack play directly into this idea. Everything seems fairly ordinary, but we know that there's something far more sinister lurking just around the corner. Every single choice that director Nicholas Roeg makes with this film is in service of toying with the viewer's emotions. Be it intentionally jumbling up the film's timeline or entirely removing the sound from high-intensity moments, we are left wondering whether or not we can truly trust our eyes and ears. 8. Horrors of Malformed Men. This film follows a medical student who, after escaping a mental institution, assumes the identity of an unknown doppelganger and escapes to a sinister island that is occupied by a mad scientist and his titular commune of malformed men, all of whom seem a little less than human. Bit of a strange plot this one, but bear with me. The story may be a little silly, but the film packs a considerable punch in every other department, with particular praise being lavished upon for its unnerving atmosphere and inventive production design. The big old orgy of strange, morbid, and utterly sinful sights and sounds that the island has to offer make this one of the most impressive examples of Japanese cinema from this period. The bustling energy in both the performances and camera work can often make this feel like an uncomfortable viewing experience, but when coupled with the horrific gore and surrealist art direction, Horrors of Malformed Men becomes a wholly unique experience that genre enthusiasts should seek out. 7. Barbarian Sound Studio. A film about the making of films, Barbarian Sound Studio is an absolute masterclass in audio design. The film tells the story of a timid British sound engineer named Gilderoy, who is invited to work on an Italian giallo film. Being something of a sensitive type, Gilderoy soon finds that working on such a depraved film has, unintended consequences. We never actually see the film that he's working on. We merely hear the descriptions of its graphic violence coupled with the stomach-churning sounds that accompany it. In the hands of a lesser director, this could fall flat on its face. But the always brilliant Peter Strickland proves himself to be a master of his craft by making it work in a bold and original way. Ultimately, it is a rumination on the powerful role that sound plays in a film, and Strickland displays complete mastery of how to marry audio and visuals in a way that can make the viewer's hair stand on end. The film relies heavily on the power of suggestion to forcefully plant nauseating images in your head, as opposed to outright showing you. 6. A Field in England. Ben Wheatley's 17th Century Odyssey truly is a film like no other. A blend of horror, folklore, and mushroom-related madness, A Field in England really is one of those you've got to see it to believe it affairs. Set during the English Civil War, we follow an unlikely group of alchemists and army deserters as they travel across a vast field in search of a promised alehouse. Old rivalries, supposed black magic, and heavy use of psychedelics soon begin to splinter the group, and whispers of nearby treasure create further conflict. Right off the bat, the stark black and white cinematography coupled with the story's barren setting creates a harsh and uncaring atmosphere, one that is further exacerbated by the distant sounds of war and the encroaching effects of the mushrooms they've consumed, all of which culminates in one of the trippiest finales you are ever likely to see. Despite the seemingly random mix of ideas, everything fits together organically to create a disconcerting and impossible to predict narrative. So much so that by the end, it will have you wondering what is real, what's the influence of the local fungi, and what the hell you've just watched. 5. The Neon Demon. One of modern cinema's most misunderstood treasures of recent years, The Neon Demon is a deliciously depraved deep dive into the black heart of the fashion industry. Telling the story of Jessie, a 16-year-old girl who lies about her age to become a model, this film explores themes of beauty, power, and abuse in a way that only Nicholas Winding Refn can, that being with an unparalleled sense of style and sadism. A Vogue cover gone sour, the imagery on display is designed to evoke all manner of violent and sexual connotations that never fail to make you feel a bit queasy, whilst perfectly punctuated by a throbbing EDM soundtrack that harks back to the genre's glory days. It's not all just shimmering lights and eye-popping visuals though. Beneath all the glitz and glitter, there is a real darkness that permeates throughout. Full to the brim with heinous acts, this one is a must-see for those who love their trashy cinema with an extra coat of gloss. 4. Altered States. Ken Russell made a name for himself in the 70s for producing the most over-the-top films he could on relatively small budgets. Highly regarded for his shocking masterpiece, The Devils, many of his other ventures have sadly fallen into obscurity. Perhaps his most unsung treasure, though, is his foray into sci-fi horror with 1980's Altered States. This is a film that explores the idea of unlocking one's mind through taking copious amounts of psychedelics and locking yourself inside a sensory deprivation chamber. That ultimately turns out as well as you'd imagine, and all manner of mind-melting hijinks ensue, leading to some of the coolest, creepiest, and most out-there scenes to ever grace the silver screen. This film is nothing short of crackers, with several trippy and hard-to-follow hallucination segments that really put your eyes and ears under some strain. It weaves an interesting narrative and features some great character building, but it's the dizzying freak-out scenes that truly make this one worth singing. 3. Climax. If there were ever a word to describe the films of Gaspar Noé, it would be excessive. Noé's films have always been beyond gratuitous in their use of sex, violence, and striking visuals, but Climax is undoubtedly his most sensory experience to date. It tells the simple story of a dance troupe who decide to blow off some steam in the only way they know how, by dancing and consuming enough booze and drugs to kill a small village. However, what many of them aren't aware of is that someone has spiked the punch bowl with LSD, and things soon turn ugly. In a stroke of genius, we never see what the characters see. Their acid-induced hallucinations are kept secret, but the film's bold colour palette, serpentine camera work, and throbbing dance music all combine to create a perpetually excruciating experience that will be permanently seared into your mind after seeing it. Climax is, for lack of a better word, exhausting. There's so much happening at any given moment, and the sheer intensity of it all becomes almost unbearable as the film inches ever closer to the end credits. 2. House, 1977. Hands down, one of the strangest films ever made, this cornerstone of Japanese cinema is a surreal treat for those who love all things spooky. House tells the story of a young girl and 6 of her school friends who take a trip to her aunt's secluded manor house. In no time at all, strange apparitions and undescribable terrors begin to harass them in the most unusual ways imaginable. This quintessentially Japanese take on the familiar haunted house story throws all pre-established conventions of ghost stories out the window in favour of a highly comedic and hyper-stylized roller coaster ride that will leave you speechless. Sure, it's a little light on story, but who needs a complex narrative when we have people being consumed by pianos and paintings of cats that spew blood all over the place? The film's use of purposefully unrealistic special effects gives it a surreal quality not typically found within the genre, one that makes it toe the line between horror and comedy in a way that no other film has ever quite managed. 1. Suspiria, 1977. A true audiovisual feast in every sense of the word, Suspiria is a film that prioritizes eye-bleeding, visceral terror over spinning a complex narrative. Its simple yarn sees American dancer Susie Bannion attend a German ballet school, only to find it playing host to a coven of murderous witches that don't appreciate people snooping on their affairs. Suspiria is a beautifully realised nightmare that is crafted with so much love and affection that every single frame could be auctioned off as a painting. Each set-piece murder and foray down dimly lit corridors is beautiful in its own right, and perfectly complemented by one of the most iconic soundtracks ever recorded, courtesy of the Italian prog rock band Goblin. The absolute pinnacle of gore-soaked eye candy, Suspiria is undeniably one of the most striking and unforgettable horror films ever put to celluloid. Even when compared to some of the more out-there entries on this list, it still comes out on top for being a complete audio-visual assault, the kind of which has never been replicated in the same way since. Yes, the new Suspiria is very good, but it's not really like this one, is it? And that's our list. What other sensory horror movie experiences belong up here? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. I've been Ash over on social media @AshMillman, and this has been WhatCulture. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and come back again soon for some more spine-tingling horror content. Thanks for watching.